Yeah, I'm here today to talk about localization and more specifically why and how you should localize your VR games. Localization, for those who don't know, is basically in this context the process of translating your games into multiple languages. Before I start, a little bit of background about me. So, as you've heard, my name is Steffen Roemer. I'm now more or less, I've experience in app and game development for around 15 years, and around 5 years ago I wanted to start a game company, actually a studio with a friend of mine, and in the process of deciding what we need and what kind of tools we would need for the process, we found out that there's actually a lot of stuff that needs to be developed, and we somehow ended up being a tool developer. The first thing that we did was creating an A/B testing platform that we sold to an analytics company, and then since around 3 years we've building a platform that's called Applanga with the idea to automate the whole process of localization. But now to the actual topic, why you should localize your game. If you only target the US market, you probably shouldn't, but if you want to reach people in South America, Africa, Asia, or Europe, you should. And I don't know what this is, but quite often get the question, why should I do it at all? I mean, most people speak English, many players understand English, and that's indeed true in the business world, but it's not true in spoken and day-to-day used languages. So there's far more people that actually speak Mandarin or Spanish than they're speaking English, and also in countries, like in my example in Germany, where we learn English in school, it's only usable in higher grades, so maybe from the 8th grade on, and also a lot of people forget a lot of stuff that they learned in school because they don't use it on a daily basis. So on a rough estimation, it's like 25 to 30% of the possible market that you reach if your game is only available in English. So I mean, it always depends like what type of game you're doing, but 25 to 30% is a good number. Also for VR markets, it's even more problematic because the biggest markets for VR and AR are in Asia, so it's like at least twice the size than the US market. So, and also the European market is nearly the same size than the US market. So it makes sense to at least localize to Chinese or to Japanese. Also, it's quite important for VR to make a good first impression. So if your game is not understandable from the beginning, it's highly unlikely that players will try it again. And since play sessions are relatively short, you need to make sure that it's understandable from the beginning. Roughly, you can say the better your localizations are, the more engaged your players get, and the better your long-time value is. And I guess we can agree translation is a good thing, and we all should do it if you want people to play your games more. So now to the point of how to do it. Actually, who has experience in game translation, so in classical game translation? If I can see a raise of hands. Not too many. Then what we typically see is 5 steps in the game and app localization process. So the first one is the extraction. So typically you have all your texts in your code, and you need to put them into dynamic files that you can extend and then later on send off to translators. In the process of sending it to translators, they are typically converted to Excel or CSV files. And one very important point that's quite often forgotten is that you should provide context to your translators, because without context, a translator cannot be much better than Google Translate. For example, as you heard, I'm working on a little VR game where you have a little pet dog and you can give him food. And food in this context is pretty obvious dog food, but in the translation, without seeing or knowing the game, how should you know and how should a translator know? So translations can go horribly wrong. So there's a lot of different ways how to provide context to translators. So one common used thing is to provide demo builds, but that's tricky in VR because translators are not too tech-savvy most of the times, and they might not have all the proper VR hardware that you need that they need to play your game. Also, another quite good way to do it is provide context through description, so you can write to every string where it is used, why it's used, and what the tonality should be, but that takes a lot of time and effort, and yeah, if you have a big game, it's hard to do. An easy way to provide context is provide context with screenshots, but in VR, it's actually not so easy to take screenshots, because if you, for example, see mobile VR, the buttons that you would normally use on your phone to take a screenshot are not available because the device is in the headset, so you either need to take the device out all the time and then press on Android, for example, that's the volume and the power button to take a screenshot, or you need to build some custom code into your game to capture the screenshot, actually to maybe use some gestures or in-game buttons to take the screenshots. Also, screenshots in VR look kind of weird because you have the stereo cameras, and if you take a screenshot, it actually looks like this on the top, so the translator might not really know what he's seeing there, and even if he knows, you're actually wasting a lot of space. So what you want to do is take a screenshot as the one on the bottom, and this also needs some custom code that you need to build into your screenshot taking process. So once that is done, the translators send you the files back, then you need to convert them again. Quite often stuff is going wrong, or text might be too long, text might be too short, so there's a lot of extra rounds between typically developers, because the developers are typically the persons that are integrating the translations, and then there's testing. You might need to send stuff off again. And at some point, there's the app release. That again can take quite a while, and quite often you don't want to make an app release just for a simple translation, but yeah, it's kind of an unnecessary evil. And afterwards is maintenance and updates, because games are updated all the time, and with every update you need to repeat all the steps all over again, and every little fix needs to be translated. So this is quite a lot of effort and quite a lot of repetitions that you want to try to avoid. So yeah, the solution for this is automation. You can write some scripts. Many companies do this, automatically convert to Excel or CSV files, automatically send it out, and that's basically also what we try to do with Applanga. So what we have, it's a bit different than most other solutions. So we have an SDK that you put into your game, and it automatically finds all the tags, uploads them to our translation management platform, where you can then invite the people that you have in your company, if you have a multilingual company, or you can invite external translators, or can invite or can ask us to translate your game for you. Also, we have ways to automatically capture screenshots and make the screenshot in a smart way that they also always know which text is contained in them. So in our dashboard, this would look like this. So on the left, you have the screenshots. On the right, you have the translation management platform. And then if you hover over the screenshot, you see what is actually going on. You can click on it, edit it directly, and we can also live preview in the game, so you don't need to make a new build of the game. Your QA team can directly see if the translations are okay, maybe they are too long, maybe they are too short, and then if everything is tested, you can push out the translations without creating new builds, which is a huge time saving, and you can do this all the time. You can also fix translations all the time, and you can also do the screenshots in the browser, so you can also do the screenshots in multiple languages, and then you can put actually the whole QA process into the browser, so you don't need internal QA people to do this. As I said, everything is always live, so you can even add languages at runtime. You can fix everything all the time. So quite often we get approached, or people ask us to fix their languages because maybe translations are wrong, and typically it would take a week or even more to release a new version. With us, you can do this quite instantly. So I rushed through it a bit, so we have a little bit of time for questions.
Yeah, sorry. Let's give him a round of applause now. So, does anyone have any questions?